So I'm going to come over to these to the geometry I made initially, and I'm going to drop down a name node. Okay, and what this will do is just generate, it won't do anything, change the geometry, but it will add an attribute called name, and there's nothing more to it really. It's just a string attribute, which means it's a word. In this case it will be on the primitives, but it doesn't have anything yet. Actually, I want this to be on the points, and the name, so the actual name will be, I'm going to write in here $OS. And what $OS it will do is look for the name of, the label of the node. So whatever is written here will be used to fill this area. Okay, if I middle click that, you can see it says name1, which is what it says here. If I put name, if I put some random, it will do the same. Okay, so the reason I'm doing that is it just makes it easier to replicate this. So when I put here piece underscore 01, you can just double check it's on the points there, so you can see every point has an attribute called name, which is a string, which means it's a word, and the value is piece 01. Now when I copy this, alt click and drag, we get automatically, because we can't have two with the same, we get piece 02, and that gives me 2 there, and then alt click and drag again, and piece 03. So this is just a way, it's a bit like using groups. So this is my, tube, my rectangle tube, and my triangle tube. You could write in there, triangle, rectangle, circle. It doesn't matter really, but it's just easier this way. For our case, it doesn't matter. So yeah, these will be copied randomly into here. We can visualize this. It's running a little bit slowly there because we've got a lot of pieces. So temporarily, one thing you can do when you've kind of got a value that you like is kind of put a multiplier on this. So if I multiply this by 0.5, it's going to drop the density by half. Okay, but then I know for my final version, I just delete that, and I've got my 100,000. If I just change this to 10,000 or 50 or whatever, I might not remember what the original was, but with this multiplier, I can just get rid of that. So that's a bit lighter now, and you can see what's going on there. It looks pretty cool. Got all this geometry kind of spread around, which looks nice. So what do we want to do? I'm going to take a look at a node called the attribute from pieces, which is yet another new node. Okay, drop that down there, and you can see when we've got 2 red arrows, it means it requires 2 inputs. So we need the point cloud, which we've got here, and we need the geometry library. So we've got 3 pieces of geometry. We've got a library, and each one has its own name attributes, which is what we need. So I'm going to drop a merge, select these, connect them up down here. All 3. Oops, we don't want that doubled like that. Okay, just going in once. So we've got 3 pieces of geometry. And then in here, what this will do is take that library and apply them that name attribute to these points in some kind of way. So what we can do is, let's try patches, for example. Maybe we can visualize that name attribute. So we should see now we've got the name attribute on the points. So if I click that, you can see it's taking that same name attribute that I made here and putting it on the points. So we've got, if we find it there, name 03, 01, and 02 in patches, and that's what we're visualizing here. So all of this area will have whatever name that is. I'm not sure what it is, but if we connect that up to show you, so this now also connects to the copy to points. And this copy to points will use that name attribute to assign 1 piece of geometry to each point. And we do that with this here. It says piece attribute. We don't want variance. We want the name. And now let's see that. And there we go. So you can see I've got all the cylinders up here. There's kind of a box tube here and triangles down there. And we've got lots of different ways of doing this. As I said, you can use cycle, which kind of just goes 1 by 1 through each piece. noise, you can get some kind of something like that. And then you've got a few others. You can use some vex, or you can map it to based on the P scale, right? So smaller pieces will be triangles, bigger pieces will be squares, and so forth. But I'm just going to use random, and that's it. Just make it random, okay? And we're not going to see the colors there. You know, I'm going to be applying my own colors to this. So that's great. One thing I want to do, so you can see here there's kind of a harsh transition there between the sizes. So let's go back to that map, okay, and change this. I think I'd like the larger pieces to be a bit smaller, so I'm going to change this to 0.8. And then let's put that visualizer back on. It doesn't really matter, actually. And then I'm going to change this curve to use Capmul ROM, so that it's a bit more smooth, a bit more of a smooth transition there from one to the other. Perfect. Okay, on to the next one.